Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Two and a Half Salesmen. I'm your host, Mario, together with my good friend,
Hello
Julio,
there.
where we talk all things sales, completely unfiltered and raw. So into today's episode, close to our hearts. But before we dive into Julio, how are you doing, my man?
Very good, very good. I'm actually streaming from Italy today. I'm very, very sad with the banned ChatGPT here for God knows what.
It is because someone has asked, can I put pineapple on a pizza? ChatGPT said yes.
That's
and
possible.
the entire Italy flipped out and just said, screw this shit. We'll just
get it out, get it out,
get it out.
That's a possibility. I bet it's something else to do with someone asking about taxes and they were like, oh, no, we can't have people do that. Anyway,
how can I pay less taxes in Italy? And the Italian government goes, we will just ban you.
Exactly. That's the best way to go about it.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, today's topic is how to train salespeople, or just training salespeople. Very close to both of us. Julio, as you probably know, works, among other things, as a sales consultant, specifically in the HR arena. And I've been working with salespeople for, I don't know, 8-9 years now, in parallel to leading teams and working as head of sales or VP sales at the same time. So a very, very, like, let's say, topic close to both of our hearts.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Julio, you wanna kick it off a little bit, and then we can, as we usually do with these podcasts, we just go head first.
We just go with the flow and just talk some shit as usual. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm gonna go straight for something that's very close to my heart, which is like I see so much content about training, right? Which is the good old face in the corner, sharing my screen and talking about things, right? And that just makes my skin crawl, right? Like thinking that this is actually how some trainings are still done. That's like some poor salesperson is sitting watching a screen and doing that. So what's been your experience with this? Because it just makes me sad.
So for years and years and years, I've worked with startup wise guys, right? So what I did basically is I did kind of basic sales training, right? B2B. I would fly over and then do a 3 or 4 day workshop in person, right? So then when pandemic hit and they became remote only, that kind of changed. But I stuck to what I was doing, and that is very interactive. And then just asking them to do things. Like I would do a little bit of, so we call it theory. It's not actually theory. It's like, this is how it is. And then let's practice. Like, let's split in pairs and practice.
Exactly. I mean, look, this is the major thing is like, I don't know, like I used to do a lot of boxing, and I never could think about you learning boxing from a book or from a video, right? You learn boxing by getting punched in the face. It's very simple. And you learn sales by getting rejected, making calls, sending emails. Although again, I don't think anything replaces calling people, but it's got to be an action type of thing. Like if it's something that's not like 70% interactive, you're just wasting your money on training, to be honest.
I completely agree here, and most of it goes hand in hand with this phenomenon that I'm seeing. And correct me if I'm off base here, or maybe you've seen something else, but this is something that is called silent sales. This is the new type of sellers that think they can generate meetings or do sales without ever talking to people. Which is ridiculous. And then we come to the same thing with the sales trainers. As you said, a tiny little head in the upper right corner, giving you knowledge And then gents, go do likewise, as Alec Baldwin would say.
I think, look, it's there's a market for it. I'm gonna come out and slander somebody because I don't like them. So there's something I saw on LinkedIn recently. I'm a big fan of Benjamin Dennehy, the most hated sales trainer in the UK, right? He says, drops a lot of wisdom, very smart, funny guy, right? And until a while ago, you probably heard about him, Daniel Disney, right? He was just a big advocate of social selling, right?
Yeah.
And I remember like 2 years ago, there was
I have both his books.
Oh, really? Okay, nice. Yeah, I know he's a really quite good guy with the LinkedIn selling, etc. And 2 years ago, he was posting memes about a dinosaur picking up the phone, right, and saying cold calling is dead. You know, why are you wasting your time with this, etc. And Benjamin was giving him a lot of shit. It's like, what are you talking about, man? And now, because the tides are turned and a lot more people are realizing cold calling works, now he posts memes about, oh yeah, you know, like a salesperson should be picking up the phone. And I'm like, dude, like, come on, man. So look, everything works. Emails work, video work, LinkedIn works. But let's just not say that one thing doesn't work because people don't like doing it.
Yeah,
it's like saying the gym doesn't work.
Yeah. So look, what's your take on the manager coach, right? So you have a sales manager. He became either sales manager or head of sales or whatever it is, right? So he leads people. There's several people that he leads. So what is your kind of opinion on the manager, mentor, manager, coach role in let's say a sales organization or a startup or in something in that sense?
I mean, look, it obviously really depends from situations. In my experience,
like a player coach, right?
Yeah, like look, I actually coming from a company that was very much hands-on. Like the team leader was making phone calls, etc. So it was kind of easier to play both roles at the same time. I do think that it's a crucial role. I think if you don't believe your manager can do the job yourself, you're not motivated to do it. And when you have these sales managers that never touched the phone in 10 years, trying to explain to people how phone calls work, I'm like, man, like this is not the 80s anymore. Things have changed. You got to do things a bit smarter, different, etc. Right? A little bit, exactly. So look, I think it's very difficult to both. As usual, management is polite. So being a good manager and a good coach, I think it's quite hard. I was actually, I think, a quite decent coach, but a terrible manager. So I think it's needed. But if you don't have the managerial skills in house, hire someone that does. If you don't have the coaching skills in house, hire someone that does. It's that simple.
I remember 2009. I was tasked to take over a sales team that was failing within my company. It was in a different country, and the team was failing, right? So they let go of the manager, and I remember then the expectation was very clear that you are a player, leader, coach. So I had to do all three. I had to lead the team. So to do all the managerial things, I had to train him and I had to sell. That was like, I think 2009 to 11. And so what I would do is I would be with the guys when they were in the field from Monday to Friday. And on Saturday, I would just do a little bit of, let's say, admin work for with the team. And then we would do like a 3 or 4 hour training session altogether.
But look, unfortunately, when there's small companies, you kind of got to wear a whole hats, right? You're a jack of all trades. However, if I were to pick, I think it would be easier to outsource a lot of the administrative work. Like almost get like a sales operation person that can help with this. And then actually the manager focusing on the hands-on task, right? And this is actually the opposite. A lot of managers fill the calendars with like, oh, I've got to do the performance review, I got to do this and that, I got to do some analysis, because they want to shy away from actually doing sales, when really should be the other way around. They should outsource the simpler admin stuff or analysis to someone else, and then just look at the put it together, and then do the hands-on stuff with the team. That's like, again, people that are scared of doing sales shouldn't be in sales at all levels, really.
Oh, it's very, very, very true. What about so this is what I come across a lot. Like I decided to do sales consulting simply for the reason that I love teaching sales. Like, so that was and still I've been doing this for 9 years, coming on year 9. And I'm doing this while I'm doing operations, like while I'm actually selling. And I've done this for 9 years now. But I come across, let's use my favorite word, gurus that haven't picked up phone in years, haven't done any sales, and they teach others how to sell.
Those who can't do teach, right? It's a good old story. Those who can't.
Yeah, if you can't do it, teach it.
I mean, look, there's a lot of charlatans going on, especially LinkedIn these days. Everyone is making 50K plus per month. I don't know why the economy is in a recession. Everyone is making 15,000 euros. So obviously we're not. I'm like, come on, guys. I actually had a call with a guy that was like trying to tell me that I should pay him 2,500 euros because he's gonna do this and that, and I'm like, dude, I counted your numbers. There's nowhere close to what you're saying. Anyway, look, I'm getting distracted. I generally think that if someone hasn't done it,
distracted.
Yeah, it's like that's what happens when you put a Serbian and Italian in a room, right? Or in a virtual room, they just start talking about the most random things. But yeah, I totally agree with you, man. Like, it's generally, if a person is being too far away, too far removed, then it's obviously a dangerous situation.
If you were, let's say, a startup and you have a genuine sales team, right? So then how would you assess how to hire a sales trainer if your manager is not doing sales?
It's a good question, actually. I think obviously you got to go for the basic things, which would be, if you get a good referral, you obviously go for it, because that's going to be the most likely. And then the rest is you really got to do your own work. Like, check out what the social proof, what are the reviews actually saying about this person, what type of techniques is he selling, etc. Because sales trainers think sales is sales, right? Which to some extent, yeah, it is. But at the same time, if you're selling to cybersecurity people, it's, there are different types of techniques that you would use by selling to like a sales guy, right? So actually the VP of sales that gets the call from a sales trainer, and that's, by the way, a good sign. Are they getting a call from the sales trainer, or are they contacting the sales trainer? But that's the type of thing that I would look at. And also the final part would be, I always, when I look for mentors myself, I look at someone who's a little bit above me.
Yeah.
So I don't think hiring a massive guru is a good idea if your level is quite low, because there's just too much of a gap. You don't hire like...
this is an excellent point.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you had similar experiences yourself.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, man. If you're in your beginning, you don't get the best sales trainer to work with you. You kind of have to level up until you get to the place where you can actually understand what this person is saying, but kind of understand it on a very, very personal level.
Yeah,
like what
exactly.
he or she is talking about. Oh, this is a really, really good point.
I think you see this a lot as well in deal sizes. I think if you're an expert of enterprise, it's very different than selling to the SME segment. Like, for example, you're an expert of medic, right? I'll be honest, I read the book. I practiced a couple times.
I love medic. I love it.
Yeah, like you know, but you really understand. If I had to work an organization for the implementation of Medic, I'll be honest, I'm not the right guy for that. I just don't know how to do it, you know. I think that's a bit of a, even there, the techniques, the targeting, the markets, a lot of these things should be taken into consideration.
Yeah. I know, man. I just love working with early stage founders and early stage startups, especially like the very early revenues, because if I put myself as in a sales trainer position or a consultant, this is the energy that I want. The endless optimism, yet not corrupted by the hell that is the current market.
100%. I mean, look, my motto is underdogs to lions, right? I just like this idea of taking someone that is an underdog and helping them to lift them up. Who cares if Microsoft increases their turnover by 1%? You know, that's not why we do this, right? Could we make more money working for enterprises? For sure. But at the end of the day, it's all about enjoying your work, right? And I wouldn't enjoy it. Plus the amount of red tape and bullshit you have to eat whenever you have to work with enterprise is just not worth it.
Well, for me, it's not. I'm a like a so in that specific sense, I'm a kind of a solopreneur. So whenever I worked with companies, whenever I worked with startups, it's always me. It's always just me, my experience. So yeah.
No, like, and this is probably another thing to add is like, look for somebody that works not just targets a specific deal segment, but that works in your segment. Because I'm sorry, like a trainer, there's working with Salesforce, right? And is used to try and improve the predictability of a deal for data analysis is a very different trainer from the one that works with a small, medium enterprise. There's actually just trying to pick up the phone and get a meeting with decision makers, right? So I think a lot of these things, they need to look for people that are close to your field. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense.
Oh, no, for sure. One of the things that is talked a lot in kind of the sales coaching, sales trainer circuits is the something that is called retention of knowledge, right?
Yes.
So maybe let's open the doors just a little bit on that. So let's see where it takes us. For me, I always try, and especially now when working with my own sales team, right? I always try to kind of the repetition is the mother of knowledge, right? So I always try like, let's go again. No, okay, let's go again. Let's go again. Until it's kind of ingrained here, like it comes to the unconscious level. But from my past experience as a sales trainer, sales trainers don't have that luxury. Like rinse and repeat.
This is actually one of the things I realized recently is that I was offering short-term packages, and then like they would get some results, but not like like after a while, you know, it's people lose it. So I'm now trying to, you know what, I don't need that many deals, but I'm just gonna go for a much longer let's say commitment, because then I know I can actually make a difference, number one. Number two, I would recommend the listeners to read a book called Make It Stick, which is basically just the book on knowledge retention. And if you read that and you go through that, then it just kind of gives you an idea.
I think I'm just looking, I think I have it somewhere.
It's the book. It's like, it's the only book that's got all the bloody scientific evidence you need to figure out how to actually make something stick in the mind of the learner. And that's what personally, I think everyone that wants to really put together some good training program should be running it through that, which so far as in 0 people do.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, one of the things that I really enjoyed when I worked, and I sometimes date some startup wise guys, sometimes contact me. So I do kind of a 2 or 3 day session. But when I did like the 3 or 4 day, like really long sessions, I always worked from lead gen, outreach, discovery, demoing, proposals, and closing. So I kind of did the full cycle when it comes to sales training, right? So for me, this was fun, like trying to cover and trying to give the salespeople all of the tools that he or she at one point will need. But what I'm seeing with trainers today is most of them are just focusing on top of the funnel, like focusing on lead gen. And this could be me, right? And I know you are top of the funnel lead gen, pick up the phone guy. But this is just what I'm seeing, like on LinkedIn and the various Slack communities.
I think that the simple reason is a sales reason. That's where the pain is at the moment. Like generally, like whenever I talk to founders and sales leaders, they usually don't have such chronic issues with the demo stage. They usually have it more in the meeting generation part. But then again, the way I see it now is that before I start everything, I run an audit. I just look where the cracks are. Because sometimes they tell me actually, oh, we got great demo close rate. We're closing 50%. And I'm like, that's just wrong. You're closing 50% means that you're just disqualifying too hard. If there's such a thing, right? You shouldn't be just closing. You should be going a 30% rate. You're not even entering some deals that you should be losing. So anyway, there's some weird things going on in the market. But as usual, like I think a good trainer is more like a doctor. You know, you do the analysis and you figure out.
Oh, I love that you said it, especially when it comes to this specific part, which is kind of discovery to demo. And I always, when I teach and I talk to my guys at Centric all of the time, and this is diagnosis, prescription before diagnosis is more practice.
Nice. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, which
is kind of what the salespeople should do anyway, right? It's like when you're trying to sell something without knowing if the person needs it, you're wasting everyone's time and pissing them off.
Yeah. I like the doctor/medicine analogies. I use when I talk to founders and I say, okay, well, you don't have to hire me. I don't care. I am doing it because I love it, not because this is my full-time job. But if you do select a trainer, just ask him when is the last time he or she actually did sales. It's like choosing a surgeon and then asking, so when is the last time you did surgery? Oh, in 1994. All righty, the door is over there. We have cookies and leave.
Yeah, like it's I totally agree. I mean, for example, I respect again Benjamin Dennehy because he takes part in cohorts with Trainio to just do cold calling, and he's like, look, I don't need to cold call anymore. That's why I need to do this, because I need to keep my skills right. And that's huge respect to the person for that. So I agree. I think needs to be hands-on trainers. Like if you get the type of trainers that aren't practicing sales themselves enough, it's just they just don't have the up-to-date knowledge that you want. And yes, some principles are always the same in sales, but it's like studying physics just based on gravity. Yeah, we discovered gravity whatever how many hundreds years ago. Doesn't mean that's where physics stopped, right? So
good analogy, actually. And what about so you and I are kind of we are both keeping very up to date, right? So especially when it comes to sales tech, and one of the episodes that we did, it was actually on the like tier 1 sales tech for SDRs and then for account executives, right? But what are your thoughts that sales trainers not only doing training in sales, but also in sales technology, like teaching reps how to leverage technology and get the most out of tech and
Mhm.
kind of incorporate everything in doing sales?
Look, I would say that this is from my experience, and there's a very good book that people should have a look at with this, which is Tech Powered Sales. It's probably the Bible on the
Justin,
matter.
Justin,
Yeah,
if you are
that,
looking at
that.
this, we want to bring you to the podcast. So, guys, if you're stuck this long, please tag Justin in the comments and tell him that we want him here.
We'll tag him. We'll tag him ourselves.
We'll tag him ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, him and I can't remember what's the name of the other guy that wrote the book, but they just
Tony
write some-
Hughes, Combo
Tony Hughes,
Prospecting.
exactly.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I have
So-
it right here.
Yeah,
Both.
yeah. I've got Common Perspective is one of my favorite as well. Like, has actually.
I know
such a good-
you're a big Tony Hughes fan. I know that.
Yeah, I am. I'm just I'm a fan of persistency over, like politeness. I mean, screw politeness, be persistent. I'd rather have a no than a maybe, So at least that's my philosophy. But I think, look, I think it takes a different type of specialist for that, because there's just so much tech, and a good specialist also knows how to make the tech work together. So I think a sales trainer should know what's the top tech, but if he's an expert in the top tech, chances are he's not keeping up to date with all the stuff. And to give you an example, right? So there's the level of complication that you can program Salesforce for. It just requires, there's people that just do that. They're programmers for Salesforce, right? And so the biggest tech, like, interesting things are for the big enterprises. And I think it's very hard for someone who's a sales trainer to just keep up with all of that. You need specialists, HubSpot specialist, Salesforce specialist, outreach specialist, SalesLoft specialist. They know how to make these things work together.
Yeah,
I would say. I would think.
My opinion is a little bit different on this. For me, sales trainer needs to know at least what I call tier 1 tech. So he needs to know how to set up at least 3 or 4 CRMs, sales engagement tools, data, maybe even Gong. He needs to know how to do, like, work with Proposify or any like DocuSign or stuff like that, right? So they need to know the basic tech stack, like the tier 1 of sales stack. And look, we've been and I kind of began this, and we wandered off into Justin Michael and Tech Powered Sales, but both of us are kind of on the forefront of what is happening with sales, right? Especially with ChatGPT 4 and the advancements in AI. I mean, my question to sales trainers, as well as sales managers that are kind of player coach or leader coach, is, can you afford not to be in the loop today, in 2023?
I mean, the short answer to that is yes, they can, but they'll see their market shrinking. Look, again, everything works, right? Everything works. I mean, come on, there's Brian Tracy still selling his books and trainings, right? And he's probably not done sales in 50 something years.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
So obviously there will be always space, and you hear some of them talking about it. You hear some of them like, oh, this is bullshit, this will never replace this, blah blah blah. Of course, that they're gonna go with the narrative, and it's gonna take a while before the market entirely catches up. It's possible the AI is so revolutionary that actually is gonna pivot the market and create a new paradigm before we even realize it.
Justin talked about this, right? And when I first joined, so I joined him in his Discord channel, right? It was sales boards. Like, this was 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 2, I don't know. It was some time ago. Like, when he was writing Tech Powered Sales, and I remember this clear as day. Like, you probably know me. I read a lot. Like, I read about 50 books every year. And then he sends me kind of the before print version of the Tech Powered Sales. I kind of pre-ordered it because I spend like thousands every year on books. And then I'm sitting in, I remember this clearly, like it's 35 degrees Celsius. I'm sitting in a cafe, I'm reading a book on my laptop, and I'm going to myself, you have like 20 years of experience and you know nothing, Jon Snow. Like I literally had like a 3 or 4 week identity crisis where I seriously contemplating moving away from sales. Because that is the effect that book had on me.
I think, look, when I read the book, I remember at the beginning, I was like, how do I have no idea about this? However, then I have realized that obviously to put together the type of tech stack that he talks about, you need to pay your sales rep how much? Actually, no, it's not about how much you pay them. It's about the cost per head. If just sales loft is 1,000,
between 15 and 2,500 per rep, and minimum.
I think it's probably some of the things
Maybe
they
even
mentioned.
higher. If you are phone first and you have a very high TAM, very large total addressable market, then you go with parallel assisted dialer. And parallel assisted dialers don't come cheap. I think they are in the range of 20 to 25,000 per year per rep. They do wonders. Like that's a fantastic tool, and I love it. Like one of my very, very good friends, Alex Hobbs, the VP sales in Connect and Sell, and I love the tech. But then it piles on. It piles with the sales engagement tools. It piles on with intent data, which is bullcrap, at least in my opinion, at least how it's done today. So I just don't trust it. And it can pile on, as you said, even to 3 or 4K per rep.
Easy. I think, again, ramping up the tech too quickly is always especially for junior reps. I think I would struggle to adapt to half the tech that's out there if I wasn't properly trained myself. So I think it's just something to keep in mind. Is like, you're not gonna buy a sales loft and suddenly your sales reps are gonna make millions. No, it just takes a while.
They still need to pick up the damn phone.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's close out this. This is a topic that I really, really love. So maybe let's close it with one thing that I get asked sometimes. Now I not a lot, but I do get asked sometimes. That's industry/product knowledge, right? So if you're a sales trainer, so let's just talk about sales trainers right now. So let's forget about player coach and managers and stuff like that. So how do you balance not knowing about the product itself versus teaching people how to sell? And of course, I already have an answer in my head, but let's
I mean, look, we kind of talked about it last time. I think that the simplest solution is you basically get your reps with the sales skills first, and then you get them to target your lower priority accounts and just practice on them until they start learning the ins and outs about the product. And you do as much hands-on product training as possible. Even if the person is already experienced, I just let them understand the product by talking to customers. It's okay to have a little bit of training. I have some scripts of tracks of what they should be talking about, but none of this is going to be learned by just watching presentations, I think.
Oh, for sure. When I did, I always, you know this, we both have NLP background, right? So we both kind of, and so I use models when I did sales consulting. So what I mean by that, and for listeners that are not familiar with NLP and the paradigm of models, is basically sales has its beginning, its middle, and its end. Right? So what I would do is I would see, okay, well, for you specifically, what is the beginning? Like, how does and then I would fill in the content with what seems reasonable. And then, okay, so what is the middle? So if you're doing a discovery call in medical industry, what are the things that you need to learn? Right? So how do you discover about pain? What do you ask? Right? And then I would generate several questions, and then they will come back, and then we will kind of do it. I would do it like that.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think that's a very simple and straightforward way to go about it, and which follows again the human mind logic, which is kind of what you want people to take on board.
One more thing, and we will wrap it up. I mean, we can talk about this for hours. One more thing, right? So have you done consulting and training and stuff like that with companies that or with salespeople that don't speak, so they only speak Italian, or where, because your first language is Italian, my first language is Serbian, we are both fluent in English, that's fine. But let's say, did you ever do sales training with companies only in Italian? And then how about when both yours and the client's second language is English? And what are kind of the differences there?
I mean, one thing came to my mind immediately when I was training with the Italians. The very first training was always telling them to shut up. I'm not even joking. The first training we would do is, this is how you learn to talk less, right? This was the very first training we would always go through. Is like, okay, first of all, shut up. So I can't even make this up, you know. So this is definitely that was the fun part. But then with the non-native, it's interesting because obviously there's a lot of
because some of the things may kind of they get lost in translation, right? So
look, it's not even that. It's more the cultural effect. So for example, with Germans, like when I was working with the Germans, it's kind of different because they really are a bit more formal. And some of the things that I was helping them put together, you could see they just were completely uncomfortable doing. Then so when I realized that you need to adapt to the local culture and how they go about doing things as well.
Yeah, I agree here completely with you. Cool. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, for you who kind of stuck all the way to the end, thank you so much for listening. And this was a very cool episode on training salespeople and how to train salespeople. As always, super fun with me and Julie. As you can see, we don't hold back, and
never.
We tell it as it is. So yeah, like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Same goes if you find us on Spotify. And until the next episode.
Thanks for hosting as usual, Mario, and see you next week.
Cheers.